mediatilaisuuteen. Meillä on tänään vähän erikoisempi tarjoulu. Meillä on täällä hävittäjälentäjäpaneeli. Meillä on 3 F-35-lentäjää. F-35 koelentäjä Billy Flynn, joka on Lockheed Martinin F-35 koelentäjä, lentänyt yli 80 konetyypillä, yli 5000 lentotuntia takanaan. Sen lisäksi meillä on täällä 2 Yhdysvaltain ilmavoimien lentäjää. Meillä on evästiluutnantti Christopher Blood Everett ja kapteeni Brett Shaw Burnside. Nämä 2 herraa lensivät nämä koneet, jotka seisovat tuossa meidän edustalla. Ja he kertovat nyt ja käyvät teidän kanssa keskustelua siitä, että mikä tekee F-35stä todellakin ainutlaatuisen hävittäjän ja lentokoneen ja miltä se tuntuu lentää ja käyttää ja operoida. So, briefly in English, we have a pilot panel with 2 US Air Force pilots who flew the jets here, Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Blood Everett and Captain Brett Shock Burnside, as well as Lockheed Martin's F-35 test pilot Billy Flynn on the panel. They'll be talking about the unique capabilities of the F-35 and what really distinguishes it from all the 4th gen fighters. I'll give the floor to the gentlemen and feel free to ask questions following this presentation. There's opportunities for one-on-one interviews with the gentlemen and with Lockheed Martin representatives present here today and over the weekend.
Thank you, Michael. Welcome everyone. First rule, as a Canadian, I've been in Finland for 2 weeks and I've heard nothing but stories of the Finnish national hockey team beating the Canadian team. So no more hockey stories, okay? Just for those who don't know me, Billy Flynn, I came from the Canadian Air Force 35 years ago. I flew the F-18 the first time. 20 years ago, I commanded the Canadian wing that fought in Operation Allied Force in Combat in Aviano. And 20 years ago, I first flew the Eurofighter Typhoon. And for the last 10 years, I have been part of the F-35 project. Here's the unique part of today. Blood and Shock are 2 operational pilots that day-to-day fly the F-35 like we intended. It's a unique opportunity in Finland to allow all of you and the public this weekend to get insights in what it's like in Blood's case to transfer from an F-16 background to an F-35 and a 5th gen, and uniquely in Shock's case, someone who only flew a trainer aircraft. This is his first fighter aircraft, and that perspective directly to 5th gen. So I'm the moderator between the 2, and we'll start with Blood.
Great. Like you said, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Chris Ebert. I'm the Deputy Commander of the 3D 8th Officer Group at Hill Air Force Base. I'm here supporting the 421st Fighter Squadron, who's the squadron out in Europe and that sent the jets up here, so part of the 421st. Like Billy said, I'm a retread, so I've been flying the F-35 for about 2 years now. I've got a couple hundred hours. I flew the F-16 before that, and then before that, I was a backseater in F-15E. So I can tell you that I really enjoy flying the F-35. Coming from the F-16, which I recently flew just only a couple of years ago, like it is such a huge step up in capability in the F-35. In the F-16, while they fly similarly, the information that you see in the F-35 is vastly superior to what I saw in the F-16. The F-16's got a slew of sensors, just like the F-35, but they're all displayed to you in different places under different formats. And while you're trying to fly, you have to take that information in and then try to put it all together in your own brain, which takes away your ability to do other things. So it's a lot of effort just to figure out what's going on in the F-16. In the F-35, it's all presented to you. The F-35 does everything for you. It presents you a common picture of the battle space, so I know exactly what's going on with just one glance at the screen, which allows me to use more brain power to do advanced thought out there, figure out what everyone else is doing. It just makes me so much of a better pilot just with the information that the F-35 gives me. The other thing that's amazing, I think, about the F-35 that just wasn't there in the F-16 is the stealth. There's really no replacement for stealth. So I can go places now that other airplanes and other systems can't see me, whereas in the F-16, like they would have seen me coming from miles and minutes away. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity for me to be able to fly the F-35. I feel lucky every day, and I just think it's a vast improvement over the F-16. So with that, I'll hand it over to our native F-35 pilot.
Yep, so I'm Captain Brett Burnside, call sign Shock. As Billy was talking about, he flew the Hornet 35 years ago. I was born 27 years ago. So I'm the young gun in the F-35 community. For me, I went through pilot training down in Texas, flew the T-38 Talon. I'd never worked a radar in my life. I never knew what a sensor was. For me, these are things that I heard older guys talking about. From that point, going from the T-38 to the F-35, definitely can seem overwhelming at first, but I'm excited to be here and kind of talk with you guys about it, because I take a perspective of people who grew up in kind of a Nintendo 64 era with smaller screens, older school displays, to a millennial where it's playing like PlayStation 4. People are catching that references. For me, it's very intuitive. So I went to the F-35. I've been flying the F-35 for about 2 years now. I was in the initial class of students to go, like I said, directly from pilot training to the F-35. Big picture, like Blood was talking about, is survivability of the F-35. So during our initial F-35 training, one of the things that you get the guys who have flown Strike Eagles or F-16s or F-15C models prior is it's a fun jet to fly, and it can maneuver and it can perform phenomenally. But there's something different, and so for me, flying the F-35, it is a change almost in the battle space in terms of the electronic warfare that occurs, the ranges that things occur at, and like you talked about, survivability with an increased threat. We look at different SAM systems. So as a young guy, that can all seem overwhelming when you put all that into one single bubble. But at the same time, for me, tactics are number one and flying is number two. So I'm able to utilize my displays, and I'm able to execute the tactics that I am briefed, but at the same time, I'm able to fly the jet, but that's secondary. It's almost intuitive with the way the jet flies itself. So before I go on and ramble, I'm excited to be here and answer any questions as the local millennial within the F-35.
So questions from you all? Yes, please.
What's the design life for the F-35 fuselage body? That's probably not been exceeded yet. But
We're on the third ground life cycle evaluation. What's the life cycle? What's the fatigue life expectancy of F-35? We're on the past the second lifetime into the third lifetime, I believe. Have I said that correctly?
Certified is one, but it's estimated in the third.
so total hours.
So we're past, I'm going to say past 16,000 hours of the ground test articles as we look into it, evaluating for 3 times its projected life cycle.
How many engines you would burn within that time?
I didn't think you're expecting to change an engine at all.
Within 16,000 hours?
Well, no, so let's be fair. Let's remember that how we manage our engine and our airplane. With our prognostic health management system, we look ahead at the utility of one engine to the next, of everything unique in the airplane. We don't change oil at a preset time. We don't do maintenance at a preset time, like historically legacy aircraft were managed. We manage the airframe and all parts of it, the engine included, on how it is used uniquely. Typically, one aircraft might be used harder than another, and over its lifetime, we manage what it needs. It tells us what it will need for maintenance versus the hard, rigid maintenance plan that we had in every jet to this point in history. Does that help answer how we were going to think about it?
It's making me more confused.
You're not changing your oil at 5,000 kilometers anymore.
Yeah,
It's going to tell us when
Sure.
it needs oil
Yeah,
to be changed.
I get that.
And so
Still.
here's why that's important. F-18 people here know all about fatigue life management and the structural problems that haunted the F-18 fleet, including my Air Force, with 3 major modifications over its lifetime because we broke the spine. In this aircraft, we will understand every element of every airplane over its lifetime, so we will know structural fatigue over 20 years or 30 years and not have the risks that the fleet, that F-18s that I came from, suffered from. Does that understand? Does that answer it better? Yes, please.
So how many hours did you fly simulator before converting from a tower to F-35? How long was training?
Okay. So from what I recall, we had about 9 to 10 simulators, which are all about an hour and a half each. So I don't want to do the public math as much as that would be super easy. So we have 15 hours of public simulator time. So those first kind of 9 simulators were primarily focused on emergencies. So we went through every single possible emergency that you could ever see in the jet and what actions you're going to take, and then how you're going to take it to what we call a logical conclusion. How I'm going to either get the aircraft on the ground or what I'm going to do with my basic or my final action. So, and then we had some local procedures. So the first time we take off, I was by myself, but I felt extremely comfortable because the simulator is pretty much a damn near replica of the airplane itself. So it was very intuitive to go from a simulator to the actual first flight itself.
There's no need for a two-seater.
No, I do not think that there's a need for a two-seater, honestly. I think a simulator with an instructor meets that intent, honestly.
Does Lockheed Martin have any plans?
No, is the answer. We learned this from the F-22. There wasn't a need for a two-seat training version like we'd had in legacy jets. It's not just the simulators. The aircraft are so much easier to fly. That task of flying that required someone in the backseat as an instructor in an F-16 or I flew Typhoon or F-18, that no longer is required. We learned it in the F-22, we believe it in the F-35.
So, Vlad, is that your experience coming from an F-16 community with a two-seat initially?
I like to tell people my first landing in the F-35 was better than any landing I had in the F-16. Which is true. The F-16 did not want to stop flying. This F-35 lands, it's so easy to land. So I don't think you need a two-seat.
Yes, please.
So legacy pilots know that and realize that they are in an aircraft inside enemy territory, but how about the PlayStation 4 generation? Do you have to remind yourself that you are now on enemy soil over, not in a video game?
No.
You realize the situation?
No, because I think what Vlad was talking about earlier is battle space awareness. That's something that the F-35 is insanely good at. So based on my tactical situation display, there's so much of that being displayed to you that in other jet you would not see. So in a legacy jet, based
I
on
mean, in your mind, do you realize that you are on aircraft over enemy territory, not in a video game, PlayStation 4 generation?
yes, maybe that was a bad analogy, but yes, I totally realize that I'm there.
One of the things you differ from your competition is that you indicate in your papers that your plane requires about 2.4 kilometers for landing and takeoff, which is substantial for Finnish conditions. Think about our potential crisis. Most likely all our good runways would be gone. You would operate in the woods and the sticks, narrow, short runways. How is that fitting into your plane?
So you're asking me about kind of runways we expect to operate on, like the standard 8,000 foot runway we would find in Central Europe, or you'd find in most places except maybe a long American runway. And the places where we're going to operate are like potentially the north of Canada in icy runways that are only 8,000 feet long. This aircraft is ideally suited to operate in that. And one of the great advantages of that drag chute that you see on the pictures of the Norwegian aircraft that we tested in Alaska is the ability to operate on runways as slippery as I flew in on Canada and that you would find here in Finland.
So 8,000 feet, about half a mile.
No, it's 2,000. It's 1,000. Do the math for me. 8,000 divided by 3. Yeah, 2,500 meters.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's right. So, but we don't have that luxury. We don't have that long runways.
It's the same length that we're talking about. An 8,000 foot runway.
Highway base is also they are the same length. It's kind of
Yeah.
Yeah, those are, but even you
You're
need
talking.
to,
So
you
we.
need to expect that those are gone too.
So I can offer you that in the HX competition, the requirements to operate on slippery runways and very short distances are something we've addressed, and we're very confident on how the aircraft can behave.
Do you ever have to use hook when you land? Does it ever happen?
I've never had to use a hook. We only use a hook for emergencies in the A model. Obviously, the C model and AV one will use the hook.
Have you practiced it anyway?
I have never put the hook down. We practice it in the simulator, which is highly advanced. I never put the hook down in the F-16 either. 10 years.
Yes, please.
Well, the F-35 seems to be the most publicized fighter program ever. In which and in and in press they always tell a lot about certain shortcomings, and some of them have not been solved yet. Have you experienced any of the shortcomings of the plane when you are flying?
Oh, shortcomings. I would say no. I think I came in the program in the perfect time. At least that's what I think. I've only been in it for about 2 years, so a lot of the folks who've been in the airplane for a while who came up through concurrent development, they've got, they saw some stuff earlier that they didn't really like. But when I came in, I flew 2B for at the transition course for 7 flights, and then I was right into 3F, which was the final or the first fully capable software. So I've been thrilled with the capabilities of the F-35. I haven't really seen any significant shortcomings that I thought were a big deal. So no.
Anything?
No, I mimicked exactly what he said. I came in at the 2B to 3I software point as a young student in what we call the older jets, and going into 3F now in what we call 30P, kind of that software tape. I have to completely agree with Blood. I have not seen any major shortcomings.
Yes, please.
With all these sensors, huge computer power, is information overload a real risk for the pilot? Is it easy to discern which of this information is truly vital?
I don't think it's information overload. I felt information overload in the F-16 because it didn't present it in a way, like it didn't put the information together in a way that was, it was usable, but it was hard to take all the disparate information, put it together to create a picture. The F-35 takes all that information and puts it in one place on one screen with one piece of battle space awareness there, if you will. So I don't think it's information overload.
So what was the analogy you just used about how I learned to fly? What beginning? We learned in this. I learned 35 years ago when the video games were Space Invaders and Pong, and F-18 was powered by 2 Commodore 64 computers. And now you have a jet that has 8.6 million lines of code. You have pilots, 4th-gen pilots like F-18 pilots, that would have a significant leap to be as capable as someone who has only ever flown this, a millennial, who sponges up that information. It is unfair. It would be unfair to take a legacy pilot and ask them, him or her, to be as capable as a 5th-gen pilot will be in this new jet. The millennials, if you will.
How useful is the help which lets you see through the aircraft?
In my experience, I'd say the helmet is incredibly useful. You think about either in an air-to-air or an air-to-ground mentality. So for air-to-air, the really nice thing is whatever I see on my scope in terms of what the enemy picture is, what presentation they have, I can make those all in a shoot list, and I can look out and I can see where they're at in space, even if they're miles and miles away. So that for me, again, is a part of the battle space awareness that I developed in my own cockpit and my wingmen developed in their cockpit to enhance survivability. Additionally, with the air-to-ground mentality, when I'm able to put stuff from my TSD, tactical situation display, that goes to my helmet, so when I look out, I can see where that point is on the ground. As a young guy, like I said, with no prior background of different ways to do it, honestly, it's super nice. And especially when you look at the ability for the helmet to go from day to night, and I don't have to change really anything on the helmet. I don't have to put night vision goggles on. like I was saying, I don't have to change anything out. I don't have to put night vision goggles on or put the visor on. So it's pretty intuitive for me as a pilot, and it only adds to the capabilities of the aircraft. I've never had really an experience where it has detracted from that, if that answers your question.
Next, please. Yes.
Not only is this huge computer power that you have, how well does it protect enemy bullets and Taliban will shoot down?
How well is it protected? I mean, shooting a bullet at our airplane?
Shooting a bullet or magnificent data center.
I'm only smiling. How are you going to shoot a bullet at an airplane that you can't see and you can't touch? But the best way to so my bit before you guys answer, the level of redundancy, we don't have a single box that if it didn't work, the whole airplane wouldn't work. It's an airplane of software cards, and the redundancy throughout that system and backups is significant, and more than we ever had in the federated systems of like a Typhoon, which I knew, or an F-18, which was singular, unique boxes. Got it?
If you don't mind, I'll add one thing on that. So one thing to add on that, as a young guy, is there's the Lockheed side of it in terms of the redundancy and the survivability. But the way I think about that problem is going to be, I'm going to see someone at a first look way before it's ever a visual maneuvering fight. So in theory, that's what the jet offers, is your sensor suite, is to keep that fight you want it as far away as possible so they, one, never see me, and I'm able to be offensive way before they ever are. So that's something I just wanted to add on there, is that it's built in, but again, the jet for me or for all of us, is designed to see people way further than they see any of us, so that by the time we get to a visual arena, they're either gone or I continue to do what I'm doing. So
how dependent the plane is on different network-based management systems for the mission handling, the spares, maintenance, and everything, because the wildest stories about the F-35 go like that if you don't have the connection to the certain server in the US, you can fly. So is it so, or is it?
So you're talking about the Alice sustainment system, yeah. Sometimes it's challenging. It's a giant stack of computers that you generally have to take places to make it work. We had some, especially at Hill, like when we first did a couple deployments, there were some issues like getting that moved and getting it connected, but we've been figuring those things out. So I think we've solved most of those problems. We brought our Alice system to Aviano, the first place we showed up, and that thing was up and running within a day. Which was, I think everyone was pleasantly surprised. We then moved it to Spangalam just last week, this week actually, and again, it was up and running within a day or so. So we definitely had some problems with that in years past, but at least from those two examples, like in the past 3 weeks, like I was personally surprised. Like, man, that thing was up and running seamlessly by the time, even before the jets got there. So.
Next question.
What's the biggest strengths that you guys are going to bring to the HX table then? Is that operationally flying the F-35? Got so much experience with it. How's it going to fit Finland best?
I think it's a combination of the stealth and the battlefield awareness. So there's really no replacement for stealth. I mean, you can package a bunch of things on the airplane. Like the F-16 I flew was definitely not the F-16 that they rolled off the factory in the 70s. So they put a lot of stuff on it, but like you just can't turn a 4th gen plane into stealth. So it's just something that's not replaceable. So, you know, I can go places that the F-16 never could. And then that combined with the battle space awareness, it gives you with all the sensors and then just feeding into just one display. So I can go in undetected and I know essentially everything that's going on. So I think a combination of those two.
Do you see that as a teamwork with the Danes and the Norwegian as well? How would that fit in?
Yeah, so I can't speak to those two just yet because we haven't done it, but just 2 weeks ago, I think, we were down in Italy and we did the astronaut exercise where we had not like prepped or trained with the Italian F-35s yet, but we went out, we loaded up our intra F-35 data link,
Yep.
and we linked up.
Right.
And it was
Just like that,
seamless.
or-
Yep,
Yep.
just like that. Well, it wasn't just like that. It was like that day.
Okay.
There's a lot of work there
Yeah,
behind the scenes
sure.
that made that happen. But again, like I was pleasantly surprised. I think a lot of people were like, "Oh man, they're on Metal. We're sharing all the information between us just like that."
That's going to be a massive advantage for HX in this area.
I
guess, to-
absolutely think so. Yeah.
In that area, yeah. Okay. What about you? So, what's your answer to that? What would you say is an operational pilot? The F-35 fits the HX requirement the best way?
So not just to mimic everything that Blood said, because I 100% agree with where he's coming from, is I look at kind of the scenario or the tactical problem that is being presented, not necessarily to this country, but any country, is you look at the surface-to-air threat that is up and coming in the world, and a fourth generation fighter that is non-stealthy, from my personal opinion, is just not survivable.
Yeah.
And so with the F-35 that we talked about, with stealth, it allows you to go places that maybe a beefed up F-16, even though it is super capable, cannot get to those points. So I think, in all honesty, that is one of the huge benefits, is the ability to get into those fights, to remain undetected, to maintain survivability. In addition, for someone just not to see you, like you were there and you can convert on them and they have no idea that you were ever there. The first time that happens, it is unreal, especially as a young pilot where I don't have any of those older experiences. I just roll up at someone's six and they had no idea that I was ever there in this big fight. So that's a pretty cool feeling.
So one thing that's interesting is the transition of Shock as a wingman, different in how we manage people in a formation tactically than we did in fourth generation fighters. And that's including here in Finland, where there would be a flight lead who's in charge of the less experienced other flyers in the formation, and it's very hierarchical. The flight lead's in charge of everything and it dictates what happens. But I'm going to get Shock to explain why and how a wingman is treated differently in F-35, if you don't mind.
Yes. So for me coming into the F-35, everything that I had known in pilot training was maintain visual with flight lead. I need you to see where he's at all times, and you will never lose him because he will get you there and he will take you home. In the F-35, it's different. My first time ever doing a tactical air-to-air sortie, my flight lead told me, I will see you on takeoff, and then I hope I never see you again during the flight, because we operate on a data link. So I'm 10 to 15 miles away from him at all times. So you can imagine a four-ship is going to be spread out pretty far. That is a huge advantage, and also it's a huge responsibility. As a young wingman, we're treated as a single-ship flight lead. So I have to have my wingman duties and support the flight lead, but at the same time as I'm geographically disconnected from my flight lead, I have to make decisions that a young wingman in, say, a fourth generation platform would not have to make. Luckily, with the F-35, like I talked about, tactics are number one and flying is number two. I am provided so much situational awareness in the battlefield that allows me as a young wingman to make those decisions. And again, it's a force multiplier, not to continue to use a buzzword, but a force multiplier when you have those factors put together in terms of survivability.
Other questions? Yes, please.
I'm not sure if we covered it here, but I asked anyway. Operational availability. Let's think 48 hours of a crisis where Finnish Air Force has to go up and without any air refueling, how many hours that can be up in the air? And let's say that anytime you go up, you've got to shoot you don't have any arms when you're coming back. So it's got to be reloaded.
So you're asking how long can an F-35 stay up in the air in a typical mission?
How many hours within 48 hours?
We can talk about normal mission lengths and maybe the difference between them.
No, that's not what I mean. Operational availability. 48 hours of crisis.
Oh.
How many hours with everything that all the groundwork you need to do, how many hours are going to be up in the air out of 48 hours?
I'm not sure specific like a specific number on that. I can just kind of compare the
Based on
like
your-
the ground turn to the F-16 compared to this one. It's the time to turn the jets is similar, and most of that's waiting on
That's
loading
part-
up
that's
weapons
part of that.
and
That's
filling
part of
it with
maintenance.
fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, this airplane breaks a lot less than the F-16, so you can keep putting the same one up more often than the F-16, from what I've seen. So yeah, I don't really have a good answer for exactly how many. And it all depends on how long they're going to be airborne. Like if you're going to fly an 8-hour sortie and then have a 3-hour turn, like you can get more hours out of 48.
Sure.
Or if you're flying just 1.5 and cleaning the rails and then coming back, like obviously the turn rate's going to, if you're flying shorter sorties.
That would be a typical 48-hour crisis.
That'd be yeah.
So 50% time, 24 hours.
No, I don't
think there's a.
I don't think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
No. And what about? Why don't you talk about squadron availability day to day? Is that a good metric to talk about?
Yeah, that's a good start.
Yeah, I don't know how much in detail.
General
Go
picture.
into. Like it's what I've seen is I didn't step to a spare for like 3 months after I started flying this. When in the F-16 I stepped to a spare like every third flight. Obviously it's older, so it has more problems. We rarely have to cancel for lack of availability. It's definitely much less in the F-16 that I'm familiar with. So I don't think it's an issue.
Other questions?
Yeah, just
Please in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, with your generation experience as a pilot, what do you bring to the fifth generation flying the F-35?
Bad habits. And in a big picture, that's kind of true, Like yeah, I bring bad habits. Obviously, I bring in 19 years of flying experience that helps it overall. But I tell these young guys when they come in, like, I can't wait until Shock and his compatriots write the first tactics manual, because that'll be the first tactics manual that is written by native F-35 pilots that are not encumbered by years of fourth gen experience. So I hope I'm around to see the first tactics manual Shock writes.
Are there elements of your experience there that you can bring into the F-35 in terms of its program and the way it moves forward? In terms of your flying experience?
For the program overall?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think too much. Like where I'm at, like I don't have a lot of impact on like overall programmatics and things going on. Like we're just down in the wing, flying the jet every day. Obviously experiencing, what a flying schedule should look like, or what I think a flying schedule should look like. Tactics, how to approach like briefing and debriefing. So we brought all those things in. We'll see where Shock and team takes it. Next thing.
One more?
Yeah, just one more. Going back to the HX requirement, because of the force multiplication that you guys bring to the table, do you see that the order could be for less aeroplanes? Is that what you're looking for? Is that because obviously you need more F-16s to do the same job that would be required now, but surely because of the capabilities of force multiplication you can reduce the number of aircraft. Is that true?
So I'll answer that. Whatever that math is that defines how many airplanes are requested, that's a math that's generated by the Finnish Air Force and what they need to generate sorties. I don't think it's up to us to tell them how to run their Air Force.
Okay.
One more question? One last question? One last question. Ask it to these guys.
In Europe, how will the air flight in the legacy jets and
The air fight? So it's fundamentally different the way we do it. Like when I was fighting.
I'm asking that what air flight being 5 generation jets
Oh, between two fifth generation?
compared to the older with the differences.
We'll show tomorrow.
Yeah. Fight between two generation airplanes, it would probably be it would be different. So like fourth gen, like it's who can shoot the farthest distance out, to get your missiles to explode first. But in fifth gen, like nobody can see anybody until you get closer. So You know, you're just trying to shape the picture and, you know, get yourself in a better position. You know, it's probably a little more of a chess game than in 4th Gen v 4th Gen. You're just trying to maximize your advantages and minimize the opponent's advantages. So it'd probably be a little bit closer entry price. Obviously, I have not put a lot of thought into that.
That's good. Thank you all so much, Michael.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well, thank you all for the good conversation and questions. If you want, there's opportunities for one-on-one interviews with the gentlemen and with Lockheed Martin representatives present here. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you guys. Do that. Appreciate it. I'm 7 years old. I'm not going to recover for that many days. I'm going to take a beating this whole weekend over that. Wow. Oh, you should ask. Our traditional bags quite